What is up, guys? Another episode of Rise and Ride. I'm super fired to be here in Whistler at this beautiful home. Maybe one of the coolest homes I've ever been. We have a legend on the podcast today. This guy's done so much stuff for the sport of mountain biking. He's a legend. He's been in this game for many, many years. I met him 19 years ago. It's exactly 19 years ago this weekend since I met this guy. He's a mountain bike Hall of Famer. I'm super stoked to have this guy on the pod today. Richie Schley.
What's up, buddy?
Oh, what's up, dude? Thanks for coming on, bud.
Of course.
How's Whistler? How's coming back? This is your old stomping grounds.
Oh, it's so cool. Like, I just been going out with all my old buddies that are Whistler locals, trying to hit all the epic rides, the gnarliest stuff, and it's definitely gnarly.
The riding is a lot different here than it is in Laguna Beach, huh?
Yeah, we have some pretty crazy trails there, but here it just seems like every trail is at that level, and you're just like, wow, okay, I got to get my head on straight because this is full on, you know?
Right. Do you miss living here?
Living here, I don't know, the town changed so much, so I don't know if I miss that too much. But, it's when you live in a mountain town like this, you just have endless people to do stuff with, and there's always some bro that wants to ride or go shred or go on a big adventure. So I definitely miss that, but I don't miss the winters.
Because, like, Whistler did you well. You were, like, the mayor here. Like, your mountain bike career started here. You're a skier. Like, you spent a lot of time here in Whistler. Like, how many years were you living here?
Well, I was here for officially 21 years. Moved here, I guess, when I was like 21. And in the last years, I started to spend more time in Laguna Beach, and then I just kind of got pulled there and was done.
So, Richie Schley in Whistler, BC at 21. Tell me a little bit about those days when you were 21 years old living in Whistler, BC.
Well, Whistler was very different then. It was like a hippie mountain town, you know. And so I remember rolling into the parking lot with my long blonde ponytail, and where half the village was probably a quarter the size, and it was dirt. There was no pavement in the parking lot, and it was really a small mountain town. Everybody knew each other once you got to know everyone. And young, old, doctors, construction workers, ski bums, everybody hung out together, partied at the bars together, skied together. It was a very different place, very different time. It wasn't cliquey.
Because before you moved to Whistler, you were living in Kamloops, right?
Yeah.
And you started in the BMX scene.
Yeah, I was a BMX racer as a kid. And then when I just got tired, I wanted to be a normal kid and go on dates with girls on weekends and party with my friends and try some team sports and stuff. And basically, when you race BMX, you're gone every weekend. So your social life is the BMX world, not your high school girls and fun and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of stopped doing it. And then when I started coming to Whistler, one of my good friends was living in Vancouver. That was one of my BMX buddies. And he was like, hey, we're racing BMX again. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we have a pro class. And I'm like, I don't think you guys are good enough.
Was this ABA or NBL?
In Canada, I guess
It would be NBL, right?
It switched a couple times. So at that time, I think it might have been ABA.
Okay.
And so it was kind of like a beer league. Like, it was A Pro, it wasn't AA. And it was kind of like we all partied, and there was a little bit of money. And so I came out to the first BMX race. I hadn't had a BMX bike in years. And I was trying to jump all these triples and stuff that only one other guy's doing in the race without much success. But I kind of was a go-for-it guy.
I mean, making an A Pro in BMX racing is crazy. Like, I never got to that level. Like, I stopped at 14, but that was like my dream. Like, as a child, like, my goal was to be like A Pro, AA Pro, and I never got to that level. So, like, I give you mad props to get to that level, because I know that's not easy, especially in the BMX world.
Well, when we would go race in the U.S., we weren't overly competitive, But then a couple guys, Scott Matchwell, and I can't even remember the other name, JG Goranzik, and these guys started coming up and racing against us. So we had to rise to their level. So after 3 or 4 years, we actually could start to beat them here and there. And Scott Matchwell ended up going AA, but he was a small guy. He didn't really make a good run at it. So I feel like reached a pretty high level. I was the Canadian champ, so that was pretty cool.
That's huge. So what did it take to get to like that A pro level? Like you had to obviously go from the beginner, intermediate, expert, collect enough points to get to that AA or to that single A pro.
I feel like when I came back in, I just walked in and was like, I want to race pro. And they were like, okay.
Oh, sick.
Because it was a small scene.
Yeah. See, I think in the States, it's a lot different. I think you have to like collect all the points. You have to go through all the nationals to accumulate enough points to be able to be even considered to be an A pro.
Yeah, well here, I know it did work like that when I was a kid and BMX was huge. But when I came back to it, it was kind of small. But it's the hardest bike to ride in my opinion. So your skills are, all of us that were BMX guys, I came into mountain biking and I could do a tabletop and it was like I was special. And I'm like, that's pretty basic.
That's funny. What made you stop racing BMX?
Well, when I was a teenager, obviously I just said that. And then when what happened was,
but like, I know you were chasing the girls and all of that, but like, what was there like a race, or was there like a moment that you're like, man, this is not fun anymore, I just want to switch it up? Like, was there like that specific moment that you knew that BMX wasn't you?
Well, in general, I am pretty adventurous, and my skiing took me to do adventures. And the BMX track, you drive your car, you get out, you're in this little square, you ride around in circles. The kids are mixed with the pros and the adults, so it's always volunteers and these parents. And sometimes we were racing for $5,000, and like 30 years ago that was a lot of money, right? And I just got tired of dealing with the parents and all that kind of crap, so I was like, this is not adventurous enough for me. So I'm like, I'm out.
I can see that. I felt the same way. I was so burnt out, and I know exactly what you mean about the parents, like putting so much like pressure on their kids winning. Like that was a big issue for me when I was racing BMX, and that was like a factor as well. Like, this is not fun, especially in like when your parents are like yelling at you and you see the other kids' parents like getting all crazy. It's a weird scene. It's a very competitive scene, actually, way more competitive than it is in mountain biking. And
it's a very blue collar sport, so there was a lot of trashy stuff going on, and I was like, I don't know that these are my people, So it was good to me, treated me well. I enjoyed it. And in that last season when I became the Canadian champ, I basically was like, I'm out. And people were like, no, we're sponsoring you. And I'm like, no, I'm out. I just wanted to hit this target. And so the sad thing is I never rode with a number 1 plate in my life, but I had it on my wall. I just never rode with it.
No way.
Yeah.
That's wild. So when did you get into mountain biking? What year?
Well, in high school, I got a mountain bike. I traded my BMX bike in, got nothing for it, and I got this Rocky Mountain Hammer. And it was pretty cool because in Kamloops, where I grew up, we had this interesting terrain which kind of started free riding. And you could just we were skiers and we were trying to emulate skiing. So you'd just be riding down a trail and you kind of look off the side and it's kind of grassy. And you just drop in and ride this shit and blow up everywhere and wreck shit and wreck yourself, and no helmets, and it was ridiculous.
And the bikes were all clapped out back then.
Yeah.
Are we talking a hardtail or dual?
Hardtail, rigid fork, just brutal. So I was kind of like, this is adventure. This is more my deal. You're out there in the hills. There's no other people around. I totally dug it. So that kind of grabbed me pretty quick. And then that's when I went back to BMX racing and race pro. And then afterwards I got another mountain bike and I was like, this is way cooler.
Wild. And then that's when you knew like this is what you wanted to do. And did you sign was Rocky your first bike sponsor?
No, actually. Well, it started slowly, right? Like how it started was kind of through BMX. Like I was wanting to be in these ski movies. And I was bugging this filmmaker, Greg Stump, and they were always like, whatever, we got lots of skiers. And so he was like, can you do a 360 on a mountain bike? And I'm like, I never tried, but I can do it on a BMX bike, so I'm sure I can. So they were making this promotional video for Specialized, and they took me to Kamloops to do a 360. And then all of a sudden, Tippy shows up, and Brett Tippy, one of my childhood buddies, and all these other dudes.
So did you know Tippy before that?
Oh yeah, we grew up. We went to school together since we were like 10.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just start riding down this crazy shit, and the film guys were these ski guys. So they were like, this is unbelievable. This is like skiing. And so that kind of spawned them to contact Bike Magazine. And Bike Magazine was like, this sounds pretty cool. So they sent out a crew, and then they documented what we were doing in Kamloops, and then the whole thing started. And so it was pretty weird then. Like, you know, I know you rode for Kona for years, and I knew some of the guys at Kona, and I called them and said, hey, we got this shoot for Bike Magazine. You want to lend us a couple bikes or give us a couple bikes? And the dudes were like, I don't see how we're going to benefit from that. And I was like, really? So we just rode our clapped out mountain bikes that we had. Well, actually Specialized gave us a couple bikes from this previous video that spawned the whole excitement.
What was the name of that video?
Pulp Traction.
I need to watch it.
Yeah, it's a cult kind of thing. Like the filmmaker Greg Stump was always very clever. Like his ski movies were called The Blizzard of Oz instead of Oz, and then like License to Thrill instead of License to Kill. And so he got commissioned to make this movie, and he called it Pulp Traction instead of Pulp Fiction. And it was what's her name from Pulp Fiction on there? Uma Thurman. And it kind of got shoved in a corner, and no one watched it because people just couldn't grasp what the hell was going on.
Who was in that film? You, Tippy?
Yeah, it was me, Tippy. I think Big D, Derek Westerlund was in there a bit, and a couple other Kamloops locals. And then it was very Kamloops centric. And when it went back to Specialized, they were like, this is bullshit. We don't want this. And so they had to they did a little re-edit, I think, on their own, and they put in their top racers, cross-country racers and stuff from the time. So it's kind of a mix of both. But there's some story in there that in the contract, there was no re-edit. So Greg Stump just went, deal with it. I'm done.
No way.
And then it got shelved.
That's wild. So essentially, like you, Tippy, Big D, you guys like started this whole free ride scene. And
I think so, but I don't know.
I'm so excited for tonight. So tonight, Free Ride Entertainment is premiering their new film, Nothing for Free, and it's the history of mountain biking. I'm so excited, like to see those early days, because I got in 2004, right? Yeah. And I'm not really like aware of what was going on before that. Right. So tell me about those days and like.
Well, just to be straight, it's not the history of mountain biking, it's the history of free riding, which in my opinion is the edgiest, sexiest part of the sport, because the sport at that time was like pretty lycra, cross country. There was a lot of road influence because it was a very endurance kind of sport. So people thought we were complete idiots, like we're wearing baggy clothes, and you know, you got flat handlebars with small travel on the bikes. And so we just kind of shook it up. And I think it was around the time Sean Palmer got into downhill. So he was shaking it up in downhill, wearing moto pants and stuff. So it was this collection of people were going, the sport could be so cool, but it's not that cool. Right. And then we arrive, Palmer's doing his thing, and people are like, oh, this is great, you know?
What year was this? Late 90s?
Yeah, I think 97.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a battle. Like you went on a ride with someone, you weren't in great shape, and they're like, he's not very good. And then you get to the downhill, and they're like, oh, this is pretty sick.
Did you ever think like free ride would be where it is today?
You know, the honest truth of that is I was really trying to be a free skier, and then snowboarding had their free ride thing, and free skiing was happening. And so when we saw the magazines and the film guys got interested in what we were doing, I actually was like, this is going to be something. This is going to be cool. And I'm a little more of a go get it, not wait for it to come to me guy. So I was like, I'm going to make this happen. And I went to the trade shows and charged after it. And I kind of feel like it was going to happen probably anyway, but I forced the doors open and said, no, you guys got to pay attention.
Right. And then slopestyle kind of got created. That was like the new generation of free riding, and a whole new badass people rolled to the scene. And I don't know if Richie Schley was too stoked on that. I don't know if you were too fired up on the new movement, what was going on in free riding in 2004.
Well, it was interesting because it started slowly. I brought this concept to Whistler. I said, look, no one knows what's going on in this bike park. So we got to bring it to the bottom and build features so that it can be televised and people can see it, so that it inspires them to want to go up there. And so then it kind of sounded like a slopestyle concept. And apparently there was a guy that did a snow slopestyle a year before in the winter or something. So I guess he's accredited to the first slopestyle. But I brought this concept. So if you remember, I don't know, I think when you came, the courses were already more like geared to what you like, a little more BMX-y, a little more tight.
I wouldn't say that. You rolled up on a downhill bike first year at Crankworks. All you guys did.
Yeah.
Don't be throwing that out there, because
I can't remember your first one.
You wanted to create slopestyle to be on downhill bikes, because I remember this very clearly. You were trying to design courses because you and Cowan were the OGs of building the Crankworks courses back then, and you were trying to target it towards like downhill bikes.
Well, the first year, Cowan came in about 3 or 4 years later, which was really cool because he was a dirt jumper, so he knew how to shape lips perfectly and stuff. But the first year, my vision was different than it is today. Like I wanted, you could be on a hardtail, you could be on a downhill bike, whatever your discipline was, and the course had something for everybody. So the downhill guys would hit the huge senders with the shitty landings or whatever, and then the guys that were more dirt jump centric would do their thing. So the very first year, Bear Claw won, Eric Porter got second, and I got third. And I was always butthurt because Eric Porter got second by doing some bullshit like tail whip little hits, and we were sending it, right? And then it started to evolve, and it got pretty obvious that there could be a special bike. There could be more about the tricks, less about the line. And then when Cowan came in, the two of us together, I was always on the weird shit like tower totters or triple step up to drop and all this stuff. And he kind of was more like shaping and trying to make it very, in my opinion, a little bit more homogenized. So it did turn a corner, and it became more about the tricks and not about the line. And the line choice thing kind of went away, and that bummed me out. Because, like you said, I was bummed to see you guys come in because you guys were better jumpers, had more tricks.
I just remember, like, because I was teammates with Cowan, and Cowan would always like, Richie's always trying to design these courses for these guys to win, which these guys were like the old school free riders, totally. Simmons, big DH bikes, because you guys didn't have the tricks. Yeah. And this new generation of free riders, Bear Claw, Zink, Stray, McCall, all these guys were rolling in, doing the bar spins, T-webs, and you guys were kind of like, what in the world's going on?
Well, yeah, that's true, but it wasn't that I was trying to protect our thing, to be totally honest. I was like, my vision of free riding was go big and raw. And I remember having a conversation with Aaron Chase that he's like, well, dude, if we're going to excel with our tricks, we need to know what the jumps are like, and maybe you should make the same jumps for every contest. I'm like, but to me, that's not free riding. To me, it's like totally raw, and you got to make it up, and you got to deal with what's out there, right? So it was a little bit of a vision thing, and to be honest, it's pretty rad where Slopestyle's at, but I'm still a fan of the Rampage because it's like your line should matter, because that's what separates BMX from mountain biking, you know?
Right. And it still has its place for sure,
yeah.
You know, and I know, like, I had Reader on, and we were just saying basically like Rampage is a big mountain slopestyle event now. And he made a really good point. It's like, hey, my line was gnarly. It wasn't getting smaller, even though I won in a single crown fork. that was a heavy line.
Yeah.
He's like, that was like, he was all bummed out because he's like, oh, people were giving me some shit because I won on a single crown. It was too much of a slope style run. But everything that he did on that line was massive.
Yeah.
And he built a bike that he was able to T-whip and bar spin that had basically the same travel as a DH bike.
Well, it's a topic that we talk about all the time. Like people, because of my roots, they'll ask me, "What do you think about a single crown at the Rampage?" I'm like, I don't give a shit. And it's like, how big can you go? And then now your guys' skill sets are different. So clearly you can only go so big in increments, it appears, in all these sports. So tricks are naturally going to come into it. And so it bothers me a little that the Rampage courses are so buffed out. But at the same time, that's the direction it went. And you can't safely do that shit without having a buffed course.
Okay. The OG of freerider, Richie Schley. If you had full control of Rampage, what would you do different?
Well, first of all, it's gone too far in that direction. So I couldn't do probably what I would originally do. But in today's situation, I had this great conversation with Cam Zink about it and Andreo. And, you know, what are we going to do? Go 5 feet bigger each year? Like, it's almost like the way the guys are riding. Maybe if we reuse the courses and guys were like, you got to go to those old courses and everybody's got to ride the winning line, or maybe a slight deviation of it or something.
I think it needs to get out of that zone.
Yeah.
I think if you want to bring back like the true raw big mountain riding, I think you need to go, I mean, I'm not saying this is like the location to do it, but like something like the Gobi, right? Like something you're long skidding down chutes, like there's no jumps, like you're choosing your line, or Fraser River, like something along those lines. Because if it stays in that little zone, yeah, you can go to the next ridge line over, you can go to the next one over, but the outcome's still going to be the same.
Yeah, I agree totally. That's the thing that I always preach, is there's no more free in free riding. Like the slope style we're going to see tomorrow night. You know, it's pretty rad. Like, you know, you got the pinnacle of pinnacle, but there's no element of surprise, right? Like a few years back, I ran into Brandon Semenuk on the course, and there was the cabin, and you could jump up onto the cabin and jump off, and that was the line. And he comes from here. I think he truly has this free ride spirit. We don't see it because the way the world is right now. And he was looking at something, and I go, "Are you looking at what I think you're looking at?" And he's like, "Maybe." And he wanted to hit the corner of the jump and jump around the cabin to the side and catch the landing to do a kind of a surprise line. And I'm like, dude, if one of the best guys is looking for options and there's no options, the courses aren't right.
Yeah. I'm going to have to argue with you a little bit on this one, because last year, Thomas Lamone gapped that.
He didn't gap it. He rode up the ramp and jumped it. But yes,
you can't hate on that.
I'm not hating on it. But in retrospect, because back in the day, remember when Timo Pritzl jumped?
Of course, I remember that.
Broke both of his ankles. It was gnarly. But case in point, everyone loved that. It got best trick.
It was
and
sweet.
It was the moment. And that's what I'm saying. I think we're missing is there's not enough element of surprise for people to go like, what?
I'm actually bummed that they moved that feature up the course, because I was talking to Thomas about it, and he was like, I don't think I can get enough speed to do it now.
Yeah.
So that's a bummer, but I know what you're saying.
And so here's a new
give the riders more options.
Yeah, here's a new school young guy that I wouldn't think he has the thirst for that, and he does it. So
yeah.
So I think the course building could be like what I used to do when I was building the courses is we would complete the course, and I had like a tickle trunk of kickers, and I would ask the boys, where do we put these kickers? And we just, I don't know if you remember that, we pepper them around, and it would just, maybe it made no sense, maybe it made sense, and somebody always did something. Cedric one year did a huge gap that no one thought anyone was going to do, and it just, it spices it up for the audience. It makes the riders think. It makes them get a little more creative instead of just diving into their, okay, I'm going to do a cash roll with a double bar spinner. I don't even know the tricks anymore.
Hey, don't feel bad, because I'm the same way. I can't keep up with all the tricks.
And so it becomes a little bit like figure skating, where it's like, oh, so you're not going to do a triple axle, you're going to do a quadruple axle. We have a course. Let the course shine a little bit, not just the time in the air, you know.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, maybe someone will just do like a one offset course with all those badass features. We had the champs dinner the other night, and Kennard, the president of Crankworks, was like, hey, we're gonna bring maybe like a veteran old school Crankworks back and invite some of the old champs. I'd be like, that'd be kind of cool. Could you imagine like Ben Boyko dropping in with a hammer just dangling off his pocket?
Maybe he should bring back the old school builder and see what kind of course we can come up with.
Ooh, that'd be cool. You, Cowan, all the OGs coming in.
Yeah,
that'd be sweet.
That'd be awesome.
I'll drop in on the e-bike.
And the e-bike.
I would.
Fuck, e-bikes are great.
I would do like a one-hander toboggan. That's all I got these days. Dude, e-bikes are sweet. Speaking of e-bikes, I saw some new bikes down there. You're riding for a new brand, or not riding for a new brand. You're
I'm back home.
Back to Rottwild.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's an interesting kind of story with this German company, Rottwild, it's called. And they're such a little underdog that no one really knows about it, but they were the first company to do an integrated battery in a mountain bike. And there's all kinds of, like the specialized motor. That motor was developed by us when I was there. We had the 2-year exclusive. It was Broza. And then Specialized got it once we developed it. And then they were a big forward mover in e-bikes, right? And people don't believe me. Like, I told Troy Lee the story. He's like rolling his eyes like, no, you didn't. I'm like, yeah, we did.
That's funny. You've represented some pretty bitchin' brands. You had that little Mercedes deal with them as well.
Well, that's kind of like the guy that owns Rottwild is such a connector, interesting guy. And he met a guy from AMG and they started talking. And, you know, in Germany, the car business and the cycling business aren't so far apart because car business in Germany is massive. And so he built this relationship with AMG, and next thing you know, I'm on Rottwild and I'm driving a G-Wagon for free, and everyone on Pink Bike's calling it the douche canoe.
I remember you ripping that to Rampage.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a savage move.
Dude, that was pretty gnarly. I called those people from AMG and I said, hey, you know, because it's a loaner car, right? And I'm like, is it okay if I take it off-road? And they're like, well, are there any rocks? And I'm just rolling my eyes going, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course there's rocks. It's off-road. And then I can try to find you the footage, but Aaron Chase, when the first autonomous drones came out, he's like, dude, let's get a shot in your G-Wagon rallying up to the Rampage. And we rallied this thing. Like in some of the shots, you can't even see the car. There's so much dust.
Well, that's what the AMG G-Wagon's for. Exactly. It's like, I don't know if you ever see any of those videos on YouTube, like literally just jumps in, trashes it, and it's pretty wild what those cars are able to do.
I mean, getting to drive that car and have it as my own car was super rad. But the raddest thing I ever did was AMG brought me to Dubai for, like, they have a customer experience thing. You know, if you're a top customer, you can pay and you go get 2 or 3 hours on the Yas Marina F1 course. And so we got to drive the cars on that. But for me, the pinnacle was we took the G-Wagons and we went in the desert, in the dunes. And it was sick. Like, I'm like, okay, how does this work? I've never driven in a sand dune. And I got this like former Formula One driver is my coach guy. So he does a lap with us and then it's like, okay, it's your turn. I'm like, all right. So you're driving up over these dunes and then you can see where they've set a track. You come into this berm and he's like, full throttle, you're going to get stuck. And you got the wipers on and there's sand coming over the windshield. Like, it's like snowmobiling. It was insane.
Damn. I would love to do that.
Yeah, people getting stuck everywhere, and they had Range Rovers to pull the cars up. That was so rad.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of that car.
Yeah. Well, I know you are. You have one.
I do. And I'm actually afraid to post it because of your situation.
Yeah. It's like,
and it's funny because if it was skating or like moto, like people would be like, oh, that's so dope. But like if you like post something that's not like a Tacoma, you're going to get hated on the mountain bike world. It's kind of weird because like look at like Nigel Houston and all these guys and these other sports and action sports. And it's like, skaters are like flexing that, and it's so weird. Like the mountain biking's so behind, I think, when it comes to like culture. Yeah,
I think maybe specifically free riding, it comes from BC. In BC, you know, Canada's a socialized country, and so it's a different attitude here. Like I live in the U.S. now, I see the difference, right? Mm-hmm. In the U.S., people celebrate when you're successful, that people get excited for you. Here, it's like, why does that guy get that? You know, and so it was weird for me when that whole AMG thing came out on Pink Bike, because people were like, oh my God, so cheesy and this and that. And you're like, okay, we're bringing huge brands to the sport. This is only going to help the sport. Mm-hmm. Like look at downhill racing, you know, they have Mercedes as a sponsor and these big brands, and it just elevates the sport and makes it cooler. But I think part of mountain biking's culture here in BC is like, people are doing it for them. They don't want all this, you know, Vegas lights. They're like, this is my deal.
I think it's lame. And I think a lot of people though, I don't know, did they know that you got that thing for free? Because I guarantee you, if anybody got a G-Wagon for free, they'd be pretty pumped.
Yeah, no shit. Well, let's be honest. I'm one of the most hated people on Pink Bike.
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
You tell me.
I think I know what it is. Maybe I don't. But I think, man, you've done so much for the sport, and I think a lot of these newer kids, they don't understand the history of the sport, right? And I think they see you today where you're at in your riding level, right? You're not the best. You're not. Of course.
I'm almost 54.
There it is, right? So I think people kind of forget that. And then I think people think that you're stacking all this cash from biking, but little do they know that you made a lot of your money in real estate.
Exactly. Like if you think about it, like I guess that's the thing, is you go on a bike ride with a guy and he measures himself against you, right? And I've always said this in these action sports. You go on a mountain bike ride, somebody can be better than you or faster than you. But then, because I used to see it in skiing all the time too. But then when you get to the heavy shit, are they going to go or are they not going to go? And that is where we made our mark and made our money. It wasn't about being fast. It wasn't about anything. It was about like, that's how action sports work. When the level is gnarly and you got to take risks, if you're not going to do that, you're not in the game, right?
Right.
And we all took the risks, and you paid the price bigger than many. And so that's the point that guys don't understand when they go on a casual ride with you, you know, on their local trails, and they're like, oh, I kicked his ass. It's like, well, did you ever hit that road gap? That thing's scary as fuck, you know?
Right. You've been very smart with your money. Wouldn't you say, though, you probably made more money outside of mountain biking?
Oh, yeah. I mean, real estate. I was fortunate enough to live in Whistler at a time when it started to explode. And one of my best friends was like more into real estate than I was. And he literally, James came to me and said, it's time for you to buy a place. And I'm like, can I afford a place? And he's like, yeah. So I bought a place. And then he'd be like, it's time to sell that place. And he held my hand through the whole process. And it just kept getting bigger places. And I was making enough money to carry the mortgages, which was killer. But let's be clear that, you know, we're not playing basketball or hockey or football. Like, so yeah, I've made a pretty decent living for, I guess, what is it now, 25 years? But it's not retirement kind of money or anything. And I think that's where people get like pissed, because they're like, well, I think I'm better than this guy. Why does he get paid? And it's like,
right.
You didn't fucking do this legacy, bro.
Yeah. No, I get it. And You bought a place in Whistler during the Olympics too, and you rented that out, didn't you? You cashed out on that.
But that was, you say I'm good with money. I was an idiot.
Oh, really?
I rented my place.
Because I remember when you got that place, and somebody was like, "Dude, Schley just rented his spot out for like 3 months for like $20,000 a month."
Yeah, I was to be honest, it was $85,000
for 3 months.
I think it was about that, yeah.
Damn.
And then, like an idiot, I went and bought a Porsche Cayenne. But I fucking love that car.
Hey, that's what you do. Life's not guaranteed. That's gonna make you happy, and
it was fun.
And how old were you at that time?
Well, that was 2010, so I'm 54 now. So yeah, I don't know.
Your mid-30s.
Yeah.
Which is the time to do that type of stuff.
Totally. I had a really interesting conversation with Fabio Wibmer a couple of years ago when he was really becoming an international, phenom. And he was sponsored by Mercedes. He's also sponsored by Mercedes, not by AMG, but Mercedes. And it was kind of a party night a little bit. And I was like, dude, you're a young, good looking dude. You got to buy yourself a supercar. And he's like, well, I don't know, And I'm like, what do you mean? When you're older, it's not the same fun. Mm-hmm. If you do it now, you're going to be so stoked because you're like still crazy and wild.
Yeah. I think he's doing life right, though. He's living in Monaco. I see him on yachts. I see him. He's got a nice little bird. Totally. He's doing good. Yeah, speaking of birds, you're a married man. Congratulations. I heard the wedding was awesome. I was talking to Rizzoli. Thanks for the invite.
I invited you.
I know. It was like a casual invite.
It was a casual invite.
But how was that chapter?
Well, I kind of went through a few rounds with women over my adult life and got heartbroken and tried too hard in relationships that didn't work. And I was just like, I guess I'm going to be a single player for the rest of my life. And I was enjoying it. I mean... Hell, who wouldn't, right? But, then it starts to get empty. And then this girl, Crystal, came along. And, I mean, honestly, I didn't even know there was someone so sweet on the planet and caring and nice and super on the same vibe as me. And I was like, oh, damn, okay. I guess I got to check myself and see because I didn't see this coming.
Yeah.
Which I guess is everybody's story. But it is interesting to go through 30 years of trying and you're like, God, this is hard. Like, and you hear your friends bitch about their marriages and whatever. And then you meet somebody that it's fairly easy and you're like, oh, now I get it. Like, it's not, I don't believe in the bullshit when you know, but it's kind of like when it's not a ton of work and laborsome and you really are stoked about the person. I guess that is when you know, right?
And you did it.
I did it.
At 53 years old.
I know.
Damn. Turning 54 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I have to ask, how are you still in one piece?
Well, I mean, that would be part of the criticism of my peers in my career is people are like, oh, you didn't take the same chances as other guys. And I was like, well, I mean, should that be criticized or should that be celebrated? Because I wasn't an idiot, Like I basically was like, when I saw certain moves or jumps or things, I was like, I don't like this. This isn't my strong wheelhouse, or it's not, I have a bad vibe or bad feeling. And I kind of backed away from those. I mean, I broke my pelvis twice. I tore my Achilles tendon, my ACL, my hand, my neck. I mean, I've broken a lot of things, but I was always a guy that I'm a good little sponsor guy. So if I get hurt, I hide it. I don't want anybody to know because I don't want my sponsors to question what I'm doing, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I've had conversations with other people about it. They're like, yeah, you never really think that you were injured. So they're like, you should have done that because then you have a comeback. And everyone's like, oh yeah, Bear Claw's back from his injury. And I'm like, yeah, I never did that. I just kind of kept it on the DL. But I have been hurt.
For like the business side of things.
Yeah.
Because you were afraid that your sponsors were going to drop you.
Exactly. But how I'm in one piece, I don't know. I party too much for sure, but I think I take pretty good care of myself, and maybe I'm lucky. I think some bodies are built different than others.
Yeah, it seems like you're aging well. I mean, what do you do? Do you have like do you go to the gym? Do you cold plunge? Like, what's your diet? No,
I don't like being cold.
Neither do I, but it's so good doing that.
I know you keep telling me that, and I gotta give it a whirl. I just had a little bit of a cold shower, and I was like, this fucking sucks.
Come to the Hideaway, man.
All
Get in that cold plunge 3 minutes a day, keeps the doctor away.
You know, the only thing I can say, there's 2 supplements I've taken forever, and I'm not sponsored by these people. I've been buying it for years. There's this chloroxygen. It's like chlorophyll. It's supposed to do something to your red blood cells. I don't even know what it does, but I've been taking it for 20 years. And then there's this other product called Synergy One, and it's a natural human growth hormone. And same thing. I don't feel it. I don't know. But I think I look pretty good. I feel pretty good. So I just keep taking it. And it's kind of that simple. That's it.
53 years old, man. Hopefully I'm still riding a bike at 53 years old. I'll tell you that. That's my goal.
Dude, I just rode, I got to do a shout out here. I just rode some of the gnarliest shit I've ridden in years in Whistler here with my buddy Tom Pro, who used to be the bike park manager. 68, and he rode every gnarly piece of this trail. We were just like, oh my God.
He's a savage. I saw that clip, and those rock slabs. Dude, the riding here is gnarly. Like gnarly. The rock slabs skidding down those steep chutes. Like I hate that type of riding.
I love it.
So if I would have went on that ride with you guys today, I would have been in big trouble.
Yeah, for sure.
But any advice to the younger generation of trying to get sponsored? I mean, you're 53 years old, still making a paycheck riding bikes. That's wild.
Well, I think it's a different game now. You know, like I think the level is high. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of competition. And I said this on a podcast last year. Like, know when to say you don't have it and you're not going to do it, because you know what are you gonna? If you want to be a mountain bike bum, be a mountain bike bum. You know, but get a job, because you gotta like pay for this shit. It's a very expensive sport. But if you really think you're talented and you have something, I mean, focus on it to a point, and then when you start collecting injuries and it's not really working, just move on, because you can go do something else you love and do this as your hobby, and then you may actually appreciate it more. I don't know. I mean, I'm lucky, so I'm saying that from a pretty high and mighty place. But I think a lot of people they're convinced they're going to make it. And there is a point where you're just not going to make it. So be realistic about that. But if you really want to make it, you got to love it, and you got to devote your life to it.
Yeah, and it's a small window.
Small window.
It's a very small window. I'm trying to think like who's still the big players since I've been involved. So like 2004, I mean, we still got Zing, McCall's. Like there's still a lot of players still in the game, but there's a lot of players that left as well.
Yeah.
But I think you and Hans must have like the longest career in mountain biking.
Well, Tippy too. Hans is...
But Tippy disappeared for a few years.
Yeah. Hans is something special, because it's like, we've talked about it, Hans Ray. He might be one of the longest active sponsored athletes in history. Like still active. Because, he's not going to a Super Bowl, but he still rides a bike for a living and
still shreds.
Never stopped. Yeah. And still rides
pretty good
stuff. And, you know, it's insane.
How old's Hans?
I'm 54, so he's got to be like 57.
Okay.
He looks a lot older.
He does.
Sorry, Hans.
We love you, Hans. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Elephant in the room.
Who's the top 5 best free riders to ever do it?
Well, Brandon Semenuk for sure. And I say that because he's from here. What you see him do is one thing, but I know he can do all the other stuff. I've always been very curious, if he raced downhill, could he have been a top downhiller? Damn. Give me some hints.
Hey, there's
I
there's not a
mean-
wrong answer to this.
What do you mean, the people I admire, or who are the best?
Just like in your book, Richie Schley's top 5 best free rider to ever do it, and it can go in all generations. It can go back to the days before Sumnick was around.
Yeah, I think Wade Simmons is pretty special. He's got a very deep repertoire of what he can do, and he's kind of a modest, unsung hero. But then you go see him piece together some insanely, maybe not the most visually impressive thing, but such an intricate line. You're like, damn, that guy's talented. It's pretty crazy.
The Godfather.
The Godfather. Zink got off to a slow start, but he's a pretty badass. Like, he'll go big. He's pretty stylish. He's a handsome dude. Because, of course, in my world, that matters, right?
That adds points. Okay.
That's points. You know, it's hard to say. Like, from there, it falls off pretty hard for me because, like, I have mad respect for a guy like Brett Rader, but he's kind of a, from what I know of him, he's kind of a competitor that came in and became a champion and crushes it in contests. It's a little different. The free ride spirit feels a little different to me, you know? But I don't know him well. I don't know the roots so well. So, because he should be in that list. A guy like Andrea Lecondagui, I think he's just got the attitude of a free rider. Like, he's just going for it. That's what he cares about. And he does the contest because he has to, but his heart's somewhere else and his spirit's somewhere else. And so I fucking love that guy.
Same.
I think he's just so exciting to watch, and he's such a crazy, hyper fun guy.
Absolutely. Hey, those Kona days with Andrea were probably one of the highlights of like my career, just like traveling the world with that kid. So, okay, Andrea, you got one more to go.
Oh, man.
Who's your last one? Top 5 to ever do it in Richie Schley's book, Best Free Rider.
I can't put racers in there because they come in and they ride good, but they don't have the attitude. They're not the same guy. Oh, man. Huh. Trying to think about ranges or rampages. Who's yours?
Hey, one day that list will come out, but today's not the day.
Today's not the
But
day.
there's a few.
Yeah.
We have a couple for sure.
Fuck. Kyle has got to be on that list, right?
Are we gonna round top 5 with Mr. Kyle Strait?
He's kind of a racer in my mind.
Racer that went free rider, huh?
I know.
And crushed it.
He crushed it. I mean, he's got the staying power more than anybody. Like he's a badass. And actually, in the last 5 years, he starts flipping off these big step downs and stuff. I didn't see it coming. And so it's pretty damn cool to see that he rose up to the occasion. I'm a little concerned after his crash last year. I hope he's going to make the right choice, whether he continues or doesn't. But that was a big one. I hope he keeps going. But yeah, I think he must land on that list.
We had a conversation about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but my neurosurgeon that operated on me did his procedure.
Oh, really?
And the craziest thing about it is that I was talking to him on my 7-year anniversary, and within 24 hours, he was cutting Kyle's back open.
Crazy.
He dodged a bullet, dude. Big time.
Yeah.
Richie Schley, that was fun.
Yeah.
We have a big night. We got a big old night. Free Ride Entertainment's new film. Are you excited? Do you know anything about this? I mean, Big D didn't tell me much. I know I shot a little bit last year here at the event, but I don't know too much about it. So I'm excited to go to the premiere tonight and watch your guys' segments back in the day and learn about the history of free riding.
I'm a little nervous because I know that he his original story was probably 2.5, 3 hours long, and he had to chop it down.
So hard.
And it's sort of like, it's a bummer because it's a documentary. So if it has to be 2.5 hours long, let it be.
You know, he should have done like a Netflix series.
Yeah. Well, I think there's going to be a series on Freerider TV.
Cool.
So the parts that maybe feel like they're short or cut short will end up being on this series.
Right. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see all of it, and I'm excited to see some old faces. Mr. John Cowan's in town.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got some old school people in the house.
Well, what I'm most excited about is, of course, I have my perspective of how it all unfolded, and you know, in the later years when you guys came in and kind of took the torch, I'm excited to hear those guys' opinions of what they thought of the past and what they thought of that time. So that's the part that I'm kind of curious about. I mean, we touched on it. But.
Yeah. Well, the premiere's in 2 hours. We got some drinks. We got some food before that. So let's wrap it up. Richie Schley, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And looking forward to riding with you back in California.
Let's do one here.
Yeah, we can. I'm here until Sunday. So let's maybe rip one tomorrow.
Okay.
Heck yeah, buddy. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.